I'm Tracy Sabol. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, a new day in America. President Donald Trump is sworn in as he returns to the White House for a historic second term. We have live team coverage. Leaving his mark, President Biden makes an extraordinary move on his way out of Washington. We have the details. Returning home. The first hostage exchanges between Israel and Hamas take place under the new ceasefire deal. Plus, honoring a legacy. On MLK Day, Alveda King tells us about her uncle's life and his Christian faith. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us. Our top story tonight, America has a new president.
The golden age of America begins right now.
And with that promise, Donald J. Trump took the oath of office to become the 47th president of the United States, and the changes are already being felt. Tonight we have live team coverage with Owen Jensen at the White House and Eric Rosales at the Capitol. And Owen, we will start with you.
Tracy, good evening to you. On a windy, frigid day here in the nation's capital, President Donald Trump took the oath of office inside, where it was much warmer. And in his speech, he said, "From this moment on, America's decline is over."
In the Capitol Rotunda, Chief Justice John Roberts administers the presidential oath of office to Donald Trump.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
And with that, President Trump, who was the 45th president, becomes the 47th president. Moments later, with now former President Joe Biden and former Vice President Kamala Harris looking on, Trump delivers remarks, saying he will put America first.
From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer.
President Trump also spoke about the attempt on his life last year.
Just a few months ago, in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
In addition, Trump said on this MLK Day, we will strive together to make his dream a reality. And he declared that national unity is now returning to America.
In everything we do, my administration will be inspired by a strong pursuit of excellence and unrelenting success. We will not forget our country. We will not forget our Constitution. And we will not forget our God. Can't do that.
President Trump started the day in worship at St. John's Church before going to the White House. There, we witnessed a series of arrivals. First, President Joe Biden and the First Lady greeted Vice President Kamala Harris and the Second Gentleman. They then welcomed J.D. Vance and his wife Usha, before Biden and the First Lady returned to welcome Trump and his wife Melania. The President and First Ladies later traveled from the White House to the Capitol, where Cardinal Timothy Dolan, the Archbishop of New York, led the invocation.
Please, God, bless America. Please, mend her every flaw. You are the God in whom we trust, who lives and reigns forever and ever. Amen.
Now, after a very busy Inauguration Day, later tonight, President Trump returns here to the White House. There are also several inaugural balls to be held. And tomorrow, President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump will visit the National Cathedral for a service. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Well, in an extraordinary move, President Biden issued a slew of preemptive pardons on his way out of office. The first was Dr. Anthony Fauci. He helped to coordinate the nation's response to COVID-19 and has since become a common target of Trump supporters. General Mark Milley also received a pardon. He is a former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff who called President Trump a fascist and detailed his actions during the January 6th riot. Also pardoned was Liz Cheney. Cheney and all those on the January 6th committee that investigated the attack. President Biden also pardoned his siblings and their spouses. He says the preemptive pardons are meant to block any kind of revenge the Trump administration may pursue against them. President Trump's administration is off to a fast start. He is signing more than 200 executive actions on his first day in office. It is the first wave of new policy priorities focused on border security, energy, culture wars, in issues like DEI programs and more. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us now with that story. Eric.
Good evening, Tracy. Yes, from renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America to declaring two genders in America and issuing sweeping immigration orders at the southern border and even giving oil drillers the green light, President Donald Trump signed a flurry of executive orders that he had promised during the presidential campaign.
High energy. Here is a man who is on a mission. And his message was, under God, we are going to get some things done. But for a full respect, the thing that I remembered is he truly feels as though he's been given an opportunity, and it was at God's will.
Whether it's securing that border to eliminate this clear and present danger created by President Biden, President Trump has the backing of the American public. So from my standpoint, he can't move fast or boldly enough.
President Donald Trump declared a national emergency at the southern border, designated criminal cartels as terrorist groups, and reinstated the Remain in Mexico policy, which could result in family separations.
This is what happens all the time in families when parents commit criminal acts. They get separated from their families. Near as I can tell, the strategy is to keep families together. And if we can deport people who are here illegally as a family, good for us.
The president also declared a national energy emergency, aiming at cutting the red tape and ending electric vehicle mandates.
You can't bring down inflation if you don't bring down the cost of energy. Energy is the backbone of our economy. You cannot deliver a product or make a product without factoring in the energy costs. So by him releasing American energy and bringing in energy independence, you're going to see the cost of goods start slowly trickling down.
The so-called EV mandate, I expect we'll see action today to go against that. I also don't frankly think it exists in law, but it's an important issue for the president-elect. We will begin to figure out where we can work together and where we can't once we see what these executive orders actually are.
Arizona Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego says he was hoping to hear a united message from President Trump. He adds he agrees with some of his border security measures, but not with ending birthright citizenship.
When I was campaigning in Arizona, ever asked for that. It doesn't actually bring us more border security. It doesn't actually bring, in general, any more security. And all you're doing is really dividing this country. So I hope to be able to work with them on some stuff, but things like, ending birthright citizenship is not where we should be going.
Within minutes of President Trump taking the oath of office, at least 3 lawsuits were filed in federal court in Washington seeking to shut down Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. The suits claim that the unit fails to comply with transparency rules and states that the president does not have the authority to create official government departments without Congress passing a law to do so. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Neither snow nor rain nor gloom of night could deter President Trump's supporters from turning out for his second inauguration. The weather may have forced the festivities indoors, but it did not put a damper on the day, as Roselle Regis reports for us tonight.
Supporters of President Donald Trump flocked to the nation's capital.
We're from Alabama, so we were really excited to come up here today and just to see the inauguration.
In hopes of watching the inauguration festivities and seeing the president in person.
The GOAT himself, of course, that's the only one I come for. Everybody else can go home. Just me and him.
But plans changed when it was announced that all scheduled events were moved indoors, leaving hundreds of thousands scrambling to view President Trump taking the oath of office from Capital One Arena.
It was very disappointing for us, but we understand why. I mean, not only the cold is one thing, but it's just, I know it's a security thing also, but we're here.
Many were unable to get into a jam-packed rally at the arena last night, but today they made sure they didn't miss anything, lining up for hours to secure a spot in the arena.
I lined up around 7 a.m. this morning.
We stood out in the rain and the snow and the sleet for 9 hours. and we never made it in. So we're very happy to have these seats.
As the crowd watched the events unfold on the big screen, cheers erupted as President Trump was sworn in for his second inauguration, this time as the 47th President of the United States. After a couple of hours, the parade made its way inside the arena. And finally, the moment everyone was waiting for, President Trump appeared and gave remarks to his supporters. Rosal Regis, EWTN News Nightly.
And we want more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including a papal blessing for the United States, the Holy Father's message for America, and our new president. And what Bibles did President Trump use when he took the oath of office? We'll tell you all about them and the fascinating history. Francis calls for reconciliation and peace after a ceasefire in the Middle East.
Dio non è tirchio. Dio quando dà tanto.
During a Sunday address at the Vatican, the Holy Father said that he is grateful for the ceasefire and called for immediate aid deliveries to Gaza. He also said that he was pleased by the recent move by Cuba to release more than 500 prisoners as part of the Vatican's Jubilee year. Pope Francis says that he hopes that all war hostages may finally return home and embrace their loved ones. So Pope Francis also weighed in on the start of the second Donald Trump presidency. The Holy Father offers divine blessings on the American people, adding that he is praying for wisdom, strength, and protection for the 47th president. EWTN News Vatican correspondent Colin Flynn has more.
Good evening, Tracy. Pope Francis, speaking in a TV interview which aired yesterday here in Italy, said that if incoming U.S. President Donald Trump comes through on his promise of mass deportations, it would be, quote, a disgrace.
If this is true, it is a disgrace, because it makes the poor, unfortunate, who have nothing, pay the price of imbalance. It won't do. This is not how things are resolved.
Così non si risolvono le cose. Those comments have been seen as a sharp criticism of President Donald Trump. But today, on the day of Trump's inauguration, the Pope sent a message to the White House in which he said, "May Almighty God grant you wisdom, strength, and protection." He went on to offer divine blessings to the, quote, beloved American people and to President Trump and his family. And he said that he was praying that the Lord would help guide efforts towards peace. But back to that TV interview from last night, Pope Francis also announced the news that for the first time, a woman will be the president of the Vatican Governorate. Sister Raffaella Petrini will be appointed in March to head all the government bodies within Vatican City State. And remember, it was only a few weeks ago that Pope Francis appointed Sister Simona Brambilla as the head of the Dicastery for Consecrated Life. On the topic of migration, Pope Francis reiterated what he called the 4 verbs. Migrants, he said, must be welcomed, accompanied, promoted, and integrated. He also talked about declining birth rates, citing Italy's average age of 46. He said, if you don't have children, you have to let migrants in. Speaking about the ongoing conflict in Israel and Palestine, the Pope said he believed the two-state solution was the only solution, saying that war is always a, quote, defeat, and he emphasized the importance of negotiations, saying sometimes you can lose something, but overall you gain so much.
Peace is superior to war. Always. To make peace, one often has to lose something. But more is gained with peace than by holding on to the things that are lost. Peace requires courage.
In Rome, Colin Flynn for EWTN News Nightly.
Well, it is relatively well known that the new president takes the oath of office on a Bible. What is lesser known is where that tradition came from and what Bibles the presidents choose.
Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden, Jr., do solemnly swear.
The office of President of the United States.
So help me God.
35 words, a Bible, and a judge. What sounds like the makings of a wedding are actually Inauguration Day traditions passed down for more than 200 years. It's an iconic moment when a citizen takes the oath of office with his hand atop a Bible and becomes the country's president, swearing an allegiance to uphold the Constitution before God and country.
Some have used the Bible that George Washington used in 1789, which is the King James version of the Bible, and it's actually it's owned by a Masonic lodge in New York. They lent it for Washington to use for the oath because Washington, his Bible hadn't arrived, his possessions, his materials hadn't really arrived from Mount Vernon by the time he was in New York for the inauguration. And so they rush out to grab this Bible.
While many believe George Washington added the words, "So help me God," at the end of the oath, there are no accounts of him using the phrase. We do know that in 1881, when President Chester A. Arthur was sworn in, he did use the words during his ceremony. Many subsequent presidents followed the leads of Washington and Arthur, using Bibles and the phrase, "So help me God," but with their own personal touch.
So we've seen some presidents opt to they want to use the very same Bible that George Washington used the first time he took the oath of office as president. We've seen a number of presidents use the Lincoln Bible, which is in the possession of the Library of Congress. Barack Obama used it for both of his inaugurations. Donald Trump used it for his first inauguration. But Donald Trump also combined the Lincoln Bible with a family Bible.
So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
What Bible did the incoming president use this year? Although Trump recently released an inauguration edition of his Bible, instead he chose the same two that he used in 2016, Abraham Lincoln's Bible and a Bible his mother gave him as a child. President Trump's childhood Bible from the inauguration will be on display at the Museum of the Bible for a limited time starting this week. The exhibit will also feature other Bibles used by past presidents.
But what's interesting about our exhibit is we also have on display the Grover Cleveland Bible that was used, that was his Bible, and it was also the only other president that had 4 intervening years between their 2 presidencies. So we know that this is always, every 4 years, a very exciting time for the city of Washington, D.C. And here at the Museum of the Bible, we're excited to welcome all those who are coming to town for this event.
Vice President J.D. Vance also used a family Bible, one given to him by his grandmother the day he left home for the Marine Corps. While swearing on a Bible is not required by the Constitution, it is a time-honored tradition from the Founding Fathers to today. Up next on EWTN News Nightly, it's not just Inauguration Day, but also a day of remembrance. As the nation honors Martin Luther King Jr., we speak to his niece, Dr. Alveda King, and hear her take on the next 4 years. Plus, more danger in Southern California, why firefighters are on guard against more fires. In other news tonight, Palestinians are slowly returning to their homes during the first full day of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire. This after 3 Israeli hostages were welcomed by their families after being released from captivity. The women are set to be the first of 33 hostages to be released over the coming 6 weeks. Meanwhile, the skies over Gaza are clear for the first time since a week-long ceasefire in 2022. The first phase of the ceasefire deal includes a pause in fighting and the release of nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. Meanwhile, the first Palestinian prisoners have been released from an Israeli jail as part of the ceasefire deal. Buses carrying 90 Palestinians were met by huge crowds cheering and waving flags. The prisoners were met by their families, who embraced them. One of the freed inmates described poor conditions that included beatings and tear gas. So social media app TikTok is restored here in the U.S. just hours after it went dark following a ruling by the Supreme Court. This comes after President Donald Trump said that he plans to issue an executive order to pause the ban. Trump would grant more time for the China-based parent company to find an approved buyer. However, if a sale does not go through, TikTok's future is uncertain. Well, Southern California is bracing for extreme winds that are expected to peak tonight that, combined with low humidity levels and dry vegetation, could ignite additional wildfires. The Los Angeles mayor is calling on everyone to remain on high alert and to be prepared for possible evacuations. A red flag fire warning is in effect for parts of LA and Ventura counties until tomorrow morning. Also, the Fire Aid Benefit Concert is expanding to include more performers for the show on January 30th. Finally tonight, it is Martin Luther King Jr. Day here in the United States, where the nation honors the slain civil rights leader. Church leaders say that his example is one of all that faithful should follow. In a statement, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops say in part, quote, "We are grateful for his courageous stand in solidarity with all who suffer injustice and his witness of love and nonviolence in the struggle for social change." But the bishops also say more people need to follow the example of the civil rights leader killed in 1968 and are calling for a genuine conversion of heart that will lead to change and the reform of our institutions and society. We recently spoke with his niece, a pro-life advocate, on her uncle's life and legacy. And joining us now to talk about the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is his niece, Dr. Alveda King. Alveda, great to be with you again today on this MLK Day and also Inauguration Day.
Is that not amazing for both of the events to occur at the same time?
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, not many days ago, we said goodbye to President Carter and that era as well. So that's three things that are kind of coming together, and it's so amazing to me. I'm so glad to join you today and to say hello.
Well, it's a wonderful blessing. And as we look back on this MLK Day, what comes to your mind when you think of your uncle, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and the legacy that he left behind?
I'd like to speak about one of his very famous speeches, I Have a Dream. And in that speech, he said, "It is rooted in the American dream." And certainly the American dream is still alive today. A little bruised, needs to be dusted off a little bit, I think. However, we still have faith, we still have hope, and we still have love. And I believe that if my uncle were here today, he would remind us of that.
And I know that your uncle's Christian faith was so important and fundamental in his life. Explain to us how it helped to shape his work in the civil rights movement.
People are not as familiar with my uncle's prayers and his sermons. And as a young man, he explored all of the religions of the world and maybe sowed his wild oats or whatever. And yet he had an encounter with Jesus Christ. And he talks about that at a knock at midnight. And he says in the height of persecution and all of the battles that were going on in America and in his life, he heard the voice of Jesus say, "Martin Luther, stand up for truth, stand up for justice. And lo, I will never leave you."
Yeah, and civil rights is human rights. And at the end of this week, thousands of people, as you know, will once again gather here in Washington, D.C. for the annual March for Life to advocate for those, as we know, Ms. Alveda, who can't stand up for themselves, the most vulnerable, our preborn children. Talk to us about the parallels between the pro-life movement and the civil rights movement.
You mentioned the preborn children, the children in the womb who are aborted. And abortion is still legal here in America, unfortunately. And for me, I say unfortunately, because there has to be a way to serve humanity without killing humanity, in my opinion. Even though as a young woman, I had abortions and a miscarriage because of damage from the abortions and that kind of thing. However, I was finally convinced my uncle was telling the truth when he said injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And the babies in the womb are little human beings.
Thank you, Ms. Alveda, and we love having you on the show. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
God bless you as well.
And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sabol. Good night, and God bless.